Before we begin, two messages. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. What mobile platform do companies like eBay, NBC Universal, the Los Angeles Times, Razorfish, and PayPal use to build their cross-platform native applications? Titanium by Appcelerator. They aren't alone. There are now over 25,000 apps deployed by Appcelerator, which has been called the Rosetta Stone of app development. And you can start now for free. Just go to www.appcelerator.com for more information. Hello everybody, welcome to this very special episode of Untether.tv. As you can see, I'm not really in any kind of set. I'm actually in San Francisco still with a GigaOm Mobilize hangover and about to get into a mobile recruiting camp. And I have the absolute pleasure of bringing on Kevin Tofel, who is the mobile editor for GigaOm. And Kevin was the MC and instrumental at this last conference at Mobilize. And I wanted to get him on here to talk about some big nuggets that came out of this conference, and some of the trends that we're seeing, some of the big statements that were flying around this. And I've talked a lot about it already, but I thought I'd get it right from Kevin. Kevin, thanks for coming on, man, and doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here, Rob. Glad to be here. It was great to meet you at Mobilize. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Oh, you know what? I really did, and I was, being from Canada, what you end up getting are you get events in the mobile space, but nothing that brings that kind of, I don't know, the brethren together like this, like happened in Mobilize. I can't walk around the corner in my city and bump into anybody from Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Google or any of these guys. So to have that kind of star power at this event and to talk about this industry that I so dearly love, you so dearly love, really it was great. It was like we were all holding arms and singing Kumbaya, I think is what it ended up being.
Yeah, it's interesting from my perspective because, like you, I'm not in the Valley. I'm in Pennsylvania, in the U.S., and for me to rub elbows with folks like Eric Singh, head of mobile for Facebook, and get to interview him on stage, it's a treat. It really is.
Well, and that's the thing. I was playing the event back in my head, and I was trying to kind of summarize it in a page or something, and I don't think you can. My general impression is that there's big nuggets out there. There's big change happening. But I went into this conference, embedded in this industry. I love it. I follow it. I read everything I can. I talk about it. I interview entrepreneurs. And I came out of that thinking, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. And it changed, like from the beginning of the conference to the next day at the end of the conference, things changed. And
it's interesting because, and it's actually good feedback to hear that, because most people don't realize we spend about almost 8 months putting this show together. Yeah. So we're pounding on doors saying, here, we'd love to get you as a speaker, so-and-so, whoever you are. But we try and really hit the breadth of the mobile industry, which is fast growing, as you know.
Yep.
And there's just so many facets of it. So there's IT aspects, there's consumer aspects, there's cloud aspects, there's hardware aspects. And it's so hard to fit them all. And that's why we had to make this a 2-day event this year. It's been 1 day for the last 3 years. So you got a double dose this year.
Yeah, and it was, you can absolutely see that because it's not that it was, the mobile industry is, my impression very clearly, listen, it's going to touch everything. It's going to touch everybody. It's going to the biggest impact, that we've ever seen. It's bigger than the PC and the internet revolutions combined, right? And I think that it's starting to sink in. And I just think from the breadth of content that you guys provided over 2 days, just shows you how often it's going to touch and where it's going to touch people. And these are just the things that we think about, right? That we know.
Right.
So, what was when you look at this thing, I had a blast. I think that's what it was, and it was great to meet the GigaOm team and watch you guys in action as a team. It was pretty amazing. When you look at this, I mean, was there anything that struck you? Some of the big messages that came out of this, the whole 2 days?
Yeah, I mean, my perspective might be different from others because as the MC, obviously, I'm on stage in between each speaker,
Yeah.
and then I'm running around backstage and meeting the next folks and so on. So I hear bits and pieces, but I still walked away with about four big messages. And we can hit upon any of these in any
Sure.
detail if you'd like. But first one, if you're not thinking mobile as a primary feature, you need to, and you're behind the times if you're not.
Right.
Secondly, mobile payments still evolving. We talk about we've been talking about mobile payments for years, and I think the maybe the Gartner folks said expect 633 billion in mobile payments by 2015, but it's still far away. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
Third thing, engagement is becoming important, more important in many ways, particularly with social networks, but also with applications and services. Engagement has to be key. It's a metric that I don't think people have thought about enough as of yet. And then finally, and I say this as a 15-year IT veteran, IT shops have to embrace personal devices, but still maintain security and usability. And that's going to drive so much change. It already is. So those are probably my four key takeaways from my running around back and forth up there.
And it's same thing. I mean, the themes were very strong in there around mobile commerce. I think it was kind of. The opening morning really didn't focus on mobile commerce. In the afternoon, really started to talk about transactions and commerce and payments, and it kind of it got a little bit lively around that, and certainly mobile payments. One of the things that I was interested about it was this, the commercialization of IT, or the consumerization of IT. Because, and I think you said it really well, it said, listen, it's a bring your own device kind of concept, and I think the big challenge that they're going to have is moving IT away from kind of a protective environment. A lot of optimism around there, but maybe that's probably a little bit one of these kind of things. It's a sensationalism piece.
I agree with you. There's a lot of optimism around there, and we're seeing it from the companies that can help enable that, obviously. The Cisco's, VMware, and so on. Right, the vendors, obviously. I mean, it opens up a new market for them, in a sense, in the IT world. I remember, as I said, I was in IT for 15 years in a couple Fortune 100 companies, and, I saw the problem from both sides, even back then. I would continuously bring in my own devices. As early as 2003, 2004, I would bring in my own personal laptop with an EVDO Rev Zero card, and I'd do some blogging or research on the side way back in 2004. I wasn't supported on the network, obviously, and whenever the IT guys came around, the other ones, I'd be hiding that laptop. Nowadays, you have people that don't want to carry multiple devices. Okay, I've got my work BlackBerry and I've got my personal iPhone or my personal Android device or whatever it may be. People don't want to carry multiple phones. We had that with pagers and phones before, and that pager went away and the phone replaced that. But then that brings the issue of how do you separate personal information from the private business security type data? How do you make that seamless? Virtualization is one opportunity there. I'm curious to see what's going to come out of all this consumerization.
Well, and I think we're just, along with the same with mobile payments and mobile commerce, is that there's a desire. There's definitely this kind of visceral feeling. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. And 2011 was supposed to be that year of NFC, and now they're talking 2013 to 2015.
Right.
And I think that people are realizing, listen, you can call it whatever year you want, but you have to create you have to enable people to use these things before and get consumer and mass adoption. But those, for me, those were the nuggets as well, was that the mobile commerce, mobile payments, certainly the consumerization of IT. And what I found that was missing, though, was, hey, where's the revenue puzzle in all of this? So, it's a, there were a few questions about this, but I'm a capitalist. I look at companies, I like their products. I'm not talking about Cisco or the big guys. I'm talking about the smaller guys, and that's a path that I don't think a lot of mobile entrepreneurs are on right now when it comes to the idea or thinking about revenue. So, I think that was the one piece that I was like, somebody's got to answer that question. What about the revenue?
Yeah, there's been so many different approaches to that. Some people are just trying to build audiences through, say, free apps or services, and then figure out the revenue later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Twitter's a perfect example of that, I'd say.
Yep.
And I'm still not sure how they're going to do what they're going to do with revenue. So that's an evolving theme that I think people are still struggling, or they're going to figure out the way that best fits their product.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, that's actually a good point.
What about? I mean, was there anything that you looked at that said, okay, so emerging from the 2 days that you going into those 2 days changed, like emerging trends, or were you, because you cover this space, were you pretty set and you knew the lineup obviously, but was there anything
Sure.
that you kind of said, listen, that percolated? This is something that we should be focusing on that I didn't really completely think was something viable or resonated?
I can't say that I was
Surprise.
extremely surprised by much of anything, but again, as you said, I had kind of put this together with the rest of our editorial team. Um, you know, I do think some of the trends, the emerging trends, are health monitoring with mobile devices. I mean, we talked about that a little bit with our Internet of Things.
Yep.
We also had one of our Launchpad folks have a product along these lines, and I was actually very impressed by it. I mean, it didn't win, but I thought it was an interesting little gadget that, the little patch that you put on your back,
Yeah.
and then an app that goes with it that tells you when you're slouching, and the little avatar slouches on your screen, for example, and the patch buzzes when you're slouching and leaned over your chair.
I liked it. Yeah.
I thought it was really innovative, and it was along the lines of a theme that I've been following for a while, because I'd seen the glow caps, the little internet connected prescription bottle, for example, that tells you when you need to re-up your subscription. But I hadn't thought of, and I don't think many people have thought of, these little personalized health gadgets that work with connectivity and smartphones and such. That really impressed me and got me thinking in a different way.
I mean, that's where you start to really understand the implication of these devices that we're carrying around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's Tim Ferriss is very famous in the 4-hour body to have inserted chips into his body to measure his glucose and his sucrose intake and the impact on the body. And I don't think it's very far away from that. There were some comments on some of the panels really about consuming consumables, like consumable monitors or consumable chips that will monitor you. And I think it just shows the wide range. And for something like for Mobilize, you guys have to curate this to understand. I mean, what's right in front of you, or what's right in front of us in the industry, or what's too far down the road to be able to. So I mean, you balanced that very well. I thought that the speakers at least had a little bit of forward-thinking pieces. What other trends did you notice, or did you glean from this?
One that's not very surprising, but came out strongly to me, was greater usage in the future of HTML5 being wrapped into native apps. That's going to bring a seamless experience across multiple devices. Because quite honestly, okay, everybody loves the iPhone, but there's still Android, tons of Android devices, more than being sold than iPhones right now, or iOS devices, I guess I should say. You've got other players in this market in terms of platform. You've got the web. People want that transferability in terms of experience. They don't want to be locked in, I think, to a platform.
Right.
Facebook was a great example. This whole HTML5 embrace, so that everything for their desktop apps will be on mobile, no matter what kind of mobile you use, even a feature phone.
Yep.
I mean, we don't think about that. We're thinking far ahead of the game here. Smartphones, tablets, feature phones. I mean, it's still outsell smartphones by a sheer magnitude.
Yeah.
But they've got to have their products out there. Developers want to do that. They've got to start thinking HTML5, I think.
And this is that. How long have we been battling about this, or having this discussion about native apps versus HTML5?
Yeah.
And I think there was a number of statements around this, is that it's not either or, it's both, right? And I think that's what I got,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I mean, when you look at something like that, do you think that developers or enterprises are looking at this thinking, okay, so are we looking at it because we're a little bit more advanced, thinking, okay, this is the way it should be? But do you think that there are companies that are embracing this now, or is it still in that battle stage? Are we still in the app world, really?
I think by and large, most are still in the app world, Rob, but I think they're also seeing examples such as Facebook, for example, that say, you know what, this could work. And if we go with something standardized, the devices may come and go, the platforms may come and go, but the web isn't going anywhere. So if we embrace a web standard, if we have to wrap it in a native wrapper for a platform, that's fine. But an all-encompassing approach may be a smarter return on investment.
Yeah. Well, because I've spent a lot of time in talking with developers around, the guys who, I think that, the folks that are making the great money right now are the guys who are building the applications for the companies, right?
Yes.
These companies are in massive growth, and, they're charging an arm and a leg, and warranted, because it's hard to find these resources, for application development. And the demand is still incredible coming through those guys. So I think that, this shift into HTML5, certainly around the standards body and W3C acceptance and all that. So it's going to be a longer rollout. But that surprised me as well. Everybody talking about HTML5, and we haven't finished this kind of app rollout yet. What anything else that kind of struck you that was just that floored you, that from the questions of the audience or anything that really kind of stuck out?
Well, a couple, I guess, very specific surprises, less theme surprises, but more specific. Yeah. I was a little surprised by Keith Raboy's comment that there's no value in NFC. Yeah. Now, granted, Keith owns Square, an alternative payment mechanism, so I can understand sort of why he's saying it, but I don't understand maybe the comment. I've used a credit card that has it's either RFID or NFC chip in it for the past 2 years. Yeah. And, everywhere I go that I can use it, I do. I just, tap and whatever. There's value to the consumer, because if you're a business owner and you don't accept a certain payment type, I may go somewhere else that does, for example. Yeah. So I think there's no value for Keith in NFC, but I do see value in NFC from a consumer standpoint. And I think there's opportunities yet to be seen for vendors to gather additional data from NFC. So I was a little surprised by that.
His statement, I think, was it's not for commerce, and he's never bumped into a merchant that wants this, right? And how many companies have you seen that didn't want a service until they wanted a service, right? It's oftentimes that at least this conference and these guys that were at this conference are leading the way, or are coming up with the ideas that eventually people would want.
It's almost like saying a vendor doesn't want an easier payment process. Well, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
Yeah. Well, when it came to Square and his comments, what really resonated for me with them was, I've always scratched my head about the value of Square, right? Not just the value, but the valuation as well.
Yes.
But really, it's the first time that it was positioned really clearly for me, was that, listen, you know what? 180 million credit cards floating around the U.S., 8 million point of sales that accept credit cards. Their business is the gap, is the people that don't qualify for the credit card merchant accounts, and they want those guys to be able to accept credit card payments, regardless if you're a vendor on the street or doing a transaction with my kids to mow the lawn, whatever it is. I think that there's that concept of giving credit card access to the uncredit carded, right? Like the unbanked.
It's a definite different market, and I think the market that NFC is going to be going after is not Square's market anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, that was a shock. Was there anything else that I love those statements, because it's conversation fodder, right?
Oh, they're very polarizing statements. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Again, at a lower level, and I talked to Kevin Systrom from Instagram backstage, and I showed him the new Galaxy S2 phone that's coming out next week for AT&T, and I said, "Dude, look at these awesome pictures. Why can't I share them yet on Instagram?" And on stage, he had hinted at Android support coming soon, but it was intriguing to me that he said he's trying to grow the audience on iOS first before taking on other platforms. And, they've seen massive growth. I think there's 23 or 28 photos uploaded to Instagram or shared every minute. It's already a free app, so why not bring it to Android? I start to wonder if maybe the variances in Android hardware are some of the issues there, and because they're already growing, I don't think they need to wait. I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, and then Flickr, stole the thunder by releasing an Android application this week. That
Absolutely.
does, the equivalent to Instagram, or maybe not the equivalent. It was shocking. But my feeling from that Instagram conversation was I was dying, and Ohm did a great job because he actually asked about revenue. Okay, well, how are you going to make revenue off of this? 10 million users. The last time we checked in with Instagram, they were at 3 million users, and now they're at 10. Like, the growth is faster than Twitter's, right? At this stage. So, yeah, it's true. The Android piece was a challenge, but you know what? I think it took them by surprise. This was a company that was left for dead, right? Their investors abandoned them, invested in their competitor, right? So, you can't fault what is a 6-team. He's got six. There's 6 employees.
6 employees.
It's just crazy.
That's nuts.
I love that. Yeah. So Instagram, a good comment about that. What about? Was there anything else that There's a few more things that.
And we hit upon this early on in the conversation. The consumerization of IT, it's happening faster than I thought. There was a lot of good discussion around how quickly that's being embraced, and I think a recent, I think it might have been a Forrester survey that said more than half of the IT companies they surveyed are now supporting personal devices in some way, shape, or form. And had you asked me what percentage it would be, I would not have said 50%. I would have said much lower. Yeah. So to me, that's a very positive sign. And I think it underscores the opportunity for companies there. The window of opportunity early in the growth cycle is now, So that kind of surprised me, that speed.
Well, and it shocked me because I've done a lot of work with large enterprise companies, and they're very regimented, especially banks around the devices that they carry. So I've seen guys, you see them, right, which is the utility belt is built for them because they have to carry the BlackBerry because of work, and then they have the iPhone or the Android device or both attached on the other side for play. And, I think that... the big thing that I got out of that was VMware's I don't know the guy's name of the presentation about the virtualization layer, where you have your VM basically as a layer on your phone, your work VM, and then your personal VM. And I think that you're starting to look at those solutions, and it's the same thing that we're seeing in the commercial or the consumer side of mobile. People are just throwing stuff up to see what makes sense, and they're building on a shaky foundation right now because nobody knows where this industry is going, and it changed, as we said, in 72 hours, every 72 hours.
Yeah, the cycles are absolutely crazy, and VMware actually, I think they're getting their virtualization product on some LG Android phones. I know I saw some demos earlier this year, and it's really a slick solution. To have your profile, like a work profile and a home profile. You've got your personal contacts, you got your work contacts. I mean, I think Android lends itself very well to this concept. I mean, as it is, all the apps are running in a virtual machine, so why not have this profile running in a virtual machine? It makes sense to me.
I would think, and we're a little bit off topic here, but from Canada, I'm I don't carry a BlackBerry, but I'm a RIM supporter. It's Canada's largest technology company, but you'd think that a company like RIM would also look at this, and Microsoft would be looking at this as well as a potential, because they have a duality. They have these devices that are on the BES and the BIZ that they're selling to consumers, and there's got to be a way to look at what VMware is doing and think, listen, this could be a piece of the way that RIM can turn itself around, I would say.
I would agree with you. Those two companies have taken a different approach, I think. They were heavy in the enterprise with Windows Mobile way back in the day. BlackBerry's obviously been well established in the enterprise. And it was really only recently that they started this consumer push, within the past couple of years. RIM could surprise in this aspect. They're already going to have an Android player in QNX. Yep. So again, you've got virtualization opportunity there that they're going to take advantage of. I don't think Microsoft wants to separate things. They want to be the end-all, be-all, and
the one desktop. Yes.
Yeah, and
one desktop to serve all.
I don't think that's the right approach just yet, but we'll see in a couple of years.
We might not be ready for it at this point. But you never underestimate a company like Microsoft because
no.
I use this all the time, but they're like a slow-moving glacier. You don't really notice them moving, but then all of a sudden you're basically covered in ice, and you're like, how am I wearing Microsoft clothes? Like, how did this happen, right? All of a sudden. So what about anything else that struck you? I mean, those were the things that struck me as well. Was there anything? What about the numbers that were released? The Twitter numbers and the Facebook numbers, the massive mobile usage from those platforms?
I thought you might ask about that, so I have them up on my screen
Great.
here. Yeah, let me just share a couple of them because for people who missed the Mobilize event.
Sure.
And it's funny because backstage I was watching all the tweets going on from the audience, and I'd be retweeting, some of the better ones or what I thought were the better ones. And it's funny when you put a number or statistic out there,
Boom.
those are the items that get retweeted by everybody right away. So. Um, Facebook users, 800 million total, which we knew, 350 million are accessing them from a mobile device. And I did the numbers, I did the math on Facebook. The growth on their overall growth is slowing, the rate of growth is slowing, but the mobile usage is rising fast. And as Eric had said on stage during the interview, you don't have to be a mathematician to realize more than half of our access will be mobile very soon. And that's why they're embracing mobile so strongly. Again, 26 photos uploaded to Instagram each second. This was interesting. 472 total mobile app developers approached two venture capital firms, Canaan Partners and Kleiner Perkins, in the past 6 months alone for funding.
That's incredible.
Of those, only 6 got funding,
Wow.
which is amazing. Yeah, that's interesting. That's 2 data points there. One, the massive number of people trying to get funding, and the very few that actually have gotten it.
Yeah, which is often, it's misconstrued because you hear about the big funds, like the big investments, and you don't hear about the small angel rounds. But just for perspective, during the .com days, which were great, which were a lot of fun. Are people saying that this is up from those days, or is it down from those days? I mean, this is just 2 firms, right? That's an incredible.
Yeah, you know what, Rob? I haven't really taken a look to compare, and I think part of the reason is nobody wants to talk about the .com days because 2 reasons. One, the obvious bubble and bust, and there's been talk of bubble and bust now, so I don't think they want to associate with that. And 2, I think it was a different time. That was not a mobile time. This is mobile. And it is a different environment, so I don't think people really want to compare it. I think it would be an apples to oranges comparison.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that the more we can educate about why they're so different, the better, so that we don't talk about it. All right, what other numbers were there? So that was Facebook and Instagram. What about Twitter there?
Well, I've got the Twitter number here too. That was the last standout number that we pulled. 103 million tweets per day come from mobile devices, which is 45% of the 230 million every day.
It's incredible.
I mean, it's interesting. It's almost the same point that Facebook is at, and that tipping point, that 50%, is right there for both of them. So it gets back to one of the first things I said. If you're not thinking mobile as a primary function or feature right now, you must do so.
It's pretty crazy that people wouldn't be. And I still bump into people saying, I don't really see it fitting in. And that's from my perspective, I love it because it's an education opportunity, and I can go out and work with them to be able to get them to think about mobile first. But it's shocking today. I watch. I mean, you look around the conference room, and it's iPad, it's laptop, it's smartphone. I didn't see many feature phones there. I don't think they would pull those out at a Mobilize conference. But and then walk around during the networking sessions. It's like head down. I'm sitting on a streetcar in San Francisco. It's like head down. I mean, you got to shake your head if people aren't looking at these kind of things.
I completely agree, and I think I don't think you can ignore mobile now if you want to, but I think you're ignoring it at your peril. I've seen the same thing, and it's not even the sheer number of devices, Rob, and the types of devices. Just look at people's activities on those devices. Certain things you just can't do on a tablet or a smartphone right now. We couldn't record this conversation over a smartphone video chat, but we could actually have it. I mean, I had a Google Talk video session from a smartphone for a half an hour with my son while I was in San Francisco, and he was across the country. I mean,
incredible. The
activities are shifting away from the desktop. We want to do everything we can everywhere we are and whenever we want. And if you can target your service or your device or your application towards that, now is the time to do it.
It's just, you're speaking.
It's amazing.
It is. I've never been a part. I was a part of the .com world, and it was for all its perils, and to be involved in it at that point was mind blowing, because some of the greatest companies have come out of that. I mean, Amazon is poised to be the largest retailer on the planet, and Bezos, basically president of the world. I mean, this guy has, and he was left for dead in 2001, right? This guy, Amazon was a dead company in the perception of everybody else. So a lot of innovation came out of this, and I can't wait. I mean, we're going to be talking about this 10 years from now, what the impact of mobile, these formative years, are going to have on the way that we do business. Sensors everywhere, don't get me started. Kevin.
No, I'm the same way, because one of the topics we did talk about, that Internet of Things.
Yeah.
I had said before I introduced that, I've got a smart home, a do-it-yourself smart home. My garage door, my lights, my thermostat can all be set from anywhere in the world from my smartphone because they're web connected.
Yep.
I have a treadmill with a built-in Google tablet. I put the running routes that I do outside on Google Maps, and in rainy days, I run those routes on the treadmill because it reads the route as well as the elevation, and it modifies the elevation of the treadmill in real time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, It's all going to be connected, and it's just amazing to me.
Now, we were talking about this. I'm jealous of the Leo Laporte setup for Twit.tv. Now I'm jealous of your house.
You're welcome to come over and run anytime.
That's right. Okay. All right. I'll be. Now, what about you got to watch from behind the stage as people were talking. As these big statements were coming out and these numbers were coming out, and I monitored the Twitter stream as well, and it was very active. But when you looked out at the crowd, and you talked to people who participated in this from an attendee's perspective, was it the same reaction that I had, which was, I thought I knew mobile, but man, there was so much going on in the world, or was it fear? Was it concern? Was there questions? What were you seeing?
I think much of what your experience would echo most of the attendees, and if not, I would try and get out and network where I could. It was difficult being backstage and constantly being mic'd up and such, but they came away, in my opinion, with the same feeling that you had. There's a wide breadth of topics that mobile really covers these days, much wider than 1, 2, or 3 years ago, for example. Right. We try and be forward-thinking at GigaOm, and that's why when we put this together, we really tried to think about what's relevant not just today, but over the next year. What's going to take us through to next year's Mobilize? And I think from the feedback that I got, if people were being honest with me, we met that goal. And the first thing I say to everybody when they tell me what a great time they had or what they enjoyed the most, the first question I always have to them, what did we fail on? What did we not bring you? And I really, unless they were just not trying to hurt my feelings, they were really didn't have much to say in that regards, which we're very appreciative of. So, I think we provided a forward-thinking, at least 1 to 2 year look out there. And based on the tweets, I think we did.
Like an actionable lookout, right? So it's not like,
yes,
we're not talking about things that are 2015 and 2016 or beyond. These are things that if you should be doing over the next 2 years, starting today, thinking about it and moving forward, right?
Exactly, because I take a look at some of the forecasts that are out today for, say, tablet sales and so on. Yeah. In my opinion, mobile is moving far too fast to predict much of anything beyond the next 18 months.
I love it.
Seriously, it illustrates how fast mobile is really moving. It's not moving slow enough that we could predict out to 2015.
Yeah.
It just exemplifies how fast it is moving.
But it's funny because I love that approach. I'm a fanboy of GigaOm. I love what you guys do there. I think it's it's an ensemble of incredible people changing this industry, your industry, my industry, and reporting on things that are so relevant But it's funny because I've talked to experts before the iPad came out, and their predictions were, okay, this is the year of the the micro PC, right? Or this is the year of netbooks. And I'd ask the question. I said, but on January 17th, Steve Jobs is going to announce this thing called the iPad. What's even nothing. So I have a hard time believing anybody who thinks that they can predict the future of mobile, because the idea of a check-in or stamping your location, these guys would never have said that this is going to be an industry. But now they're the ones saying, by 2013 or 2014, there's going to be this many. I have a hard time believing it when the guys on the street don't know what they're doing, what's happening.
I would agree with you, and personally, I try not to put out predictions that far for that very reason.
Yeah.
I think what's going on, I mean, the analysts are looking at a point in time and forecasting.
Yeah.
And because that point in time is changing so rapidly, then it's, well, forget what I said. Now it's, here's my new prediction.
Yeah.
So it's snapshots based on these points in time. And, I respect what they have to do. And where feasible, I'll quote their reports and their numbers, but I'll also dose it with healthy skepticism for the reasons we've just talked about. Yeah. You can't predict out that far.
Not while we're changing it as we go.
No.
So it begs the question: what's different? I mean, what have you noticed that was different from this is the fourth Mobilize? What was the difference? What did you see over the last year different from Mobilize 3? I mean, Mobilize 3 was 1 day. This is obviously 2.
Right.
But what else what was different between the 2 years?
We hit upon this before. I think the breadth of topics that Mobilize is touching, it's almost what's required us to go to a 2-day event. Last year we focused so much on broadband, and we did this year as well. Yep. Some devices and,
hardware
and services. Less of that this year, in my opinion. I mean, we had a product launch with T-Mobile, which was nice to see at our event, but mostly it was look at how much mobile is permeating all these different areas. The fact that we had to go to a 2-day event and probably could have had added more, quite honestly. I don't think we could have done that in prior years. It's to the point now where people are going, oh, wait a second, this mobile thing isn't a flash in the pan. It's actually the future that's going to drive my business. Yeah. That's probably the biggest change, in my opinion, right there.
I love that. At what point do you stop calling it Mobilize? You call it like Business Eyes or whatever it is,
I don't know that we want to compartmentalize mobile into business and consumer. Yeah. And a good example of that is the consumerization of IT. I mean, there's the perfect blending of business and consumer, So to do that, I think it would limit us too much, quite honestly.
But it's, I mean, I'm speaking at a conference and I was doing some pre-interviews and we're talking about mobile, and they said, no, give me another word. Like mobile is not, like, mobile's too big. It means apps. It means, and so they said, well, give me another word for it. And I'm like, look, there is no other word for what we're going through right now. So we've got to live with this word called mobile. But at some point, it becomes just part of the vernacular. It just becomes that stream. But it's interesting observation when I'm talking to these guys. It's like, give me another word for mobile. And he said, do you have another word for mobile? Is there one?
I don't think I could come up with one, because I mean, I look at mobile, and what is the biggest thing it's done? It's enabled us. It's an enabler. Yep. And we're moving beyond sitting here at the desktop and we're consuming video, and we are connecting with people in new, rich ways. We want to do everything and more that we do on the desktop everywhere. Right. And with the rise of 3G, 4G networks, we can do it. Yep. With the hardware tech cycles really rapidly changing. I mean, it's getting ridiculous, the tech cycles. Yeah. I don't think there's another word for this.
Good.
I just don't.
I'm glad, because I don't have an answer for them. And when I say, look, that's what it is. And it doesn't just mean the tablet that's in front of you, the laptop, or the smartphone. It also means, it means your garage door, your thermostat, the traffic lights. It means sensors in the body or sensors in a pill box. It means things that we haven't even thought about. The dashboard on your car, right? So it's just such an all-encompassing thing. And I could really see Mobilize being, a 30-day World's Fair, right?
You would. I hope not, or they get a different MC. That's all I'm going to say right now.
I couldn't do it, and it would be a marathon. It's just
I don't
no
think
sleep.
I could do it. I don't think I could do it. I mean, when you look at what do we expect? 50 billion connected devices by 2020. I think the CEO of Ericsson had said last year. Yep. We're well on our way with that machine-to-machine connectivity. Yeah. Mobile is just another attribute of every app, device, and service that's out there. It's going to be. It has to be part of the DNA of all these things.
It's pretty, and soon your DNA, right, Kevin? That's
maybe.
What it's going to be.
Maybe.
My kids' DNA and their kids. Will be accepting of this. We'll look back and think, I can't believe they inserted that chip in.
It'll be a different world. no doubt.
What about any parting thoughts? So next year, obviously, you're going to do this bigger, better, grander. Yeah, I know. I saw the exhaustion at the end of day two, but
Yeah.
well worth it, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly enjoy it. It is exhausting. We have a great events team that handles the logistics very well. We try and stick to that schedule so that you're not behind, and we have to cut people short.
Yeah.
I don't really know what next year's going to bring, and I don't want to think about it just yet because I am still recovering. But yeah, I think next year we need to talk a little bit more about these tech cycles because every day I'm seeing new mobile products that are leaps and bounds better than the last one that just came out yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
And I almost think that's happening too fast because the hardware tech cycles are almost out of sync with some of the infrastructure tech cycles. I look at T-Mobile, for example, and they leapfrogged everybody with their HSPA plus network in the United States. Last year they put it out to 21 megabits per second.
Yep.
This year it's 42 megabits per second. So what does that say to me as a consumer or a business procurement manager that, well, I just bought this 21 megabit per second phone and now you're telling me I can get double the speeds, but yet I'm on contract for 2 years. So
Right.
we're all out of whack here. How can I be mobile and nimble if the tech cycles are moving this quickly?
Well, I mean, I think people could take a lesson from a company like Apple, right? Which is let's slow down the pace and
Yes.
be somewhat predictable. And
Mhm.
because I look at, we talk about RIM, we talk about these Android devices. Even most of the manufacturers, they're cannibalizing their market because it's always about the next one. It's always about the next
Right.
one. And I think that's it could slow down adoption because of the latest and greatest, because everybody's waiting for the latest and greatest. But get into a
Exactly.
regimented piece. I mean, so how many product launches were at Mobilize this year? Just
I think it was just the T-Mobile with their new 42 megabit per second phones, two of them, and their hotspot.
But that's it. It's but they what was it? 90 days ago they launched two phones, and it's just how is this? That's a cycle that everybody's scrambling for, and I just wonder. This is a confusing piece of it.
It is
definitely confusing, and I'm of the belief. I love hardware. I mean, I'm surrounded by it all the time, but
Yeah.
an average consumer doesn't care. Hardware doesn't matter. It's the that infrastructure layer, the service layer on top of it, the ecosystem, all those kind of buzzwords that we hear. But it's true. It's you got to look at it from a consumer front-facing aspect, and it's just confusing when you have the Galaxy S, Galaxy S2, Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm a device guy as well. I mean, I'm really a gadget guy, and I focus mainly on the consumer because I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't go to college to learn about this stuff.
Yep.
It was a hobby for me while in IT, and I started blogging about it and doing device reviews, and I take a very consumer-centric view of things.
Yeah.
So, this is big in my space right now.
It's a good perspective.
Yeah.
All right, so Kevin, I've monopolized your morning.
No worries.
So people obviously can find you at gigaom.com. Is there anything that you're working on? Obviously, next week, this will be published today because of the severity of the recency of the news, which is very important. But
Sure.
anything that you're covering that you want to push? Obviously, next week is probably a new iPhone launch. Is there anything else that you're pushing out there?
Yeah, obviously next week, October the 4th, we have the iPhone announcement.
Yep.
I'll be very curious to see that. I've been an Android user pretty much nonstop now for a year and 3/4.
Yep.
Still have an iPad, but I use a 7-inch Galaxy Tab for my tablet. So with this Galaxy S2, which is also just launched on AT&T, or I'm sorry, it launches on AT&T Sunday,
Yep.
2 days before the event,
Yeah, I know.
and then T-Mobile just announced their faster Galaxy 2 at our show. I'm kind of curious, and I wrote a post on this recently, Samsung's delay to launch this device. It's a great, great Android device. I love it. Their delay in releasing it to the US at a time when 8's going to go head-to-head in the iPhone, against the iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see who wins, if anybody.
Well,
gonna be
it's
very
staggering because that statistic. You guys publish this. Like 41% of people are going to buy the iPhone. Poll. They're going to buy the iPhone 5. Like
Yeah.
that's insurmountable. So why would I want launching on a Sunday, 2 days before the announcement, and then this is tough, but it's all strategic. So obviously this is a big week for our industry when it comes to this device. I know Ohm is an iPhone user, right?
He is.
Yeah. And
He
so,
is. He.
what would tempt you, just out of curiosity, to switch over from these slew of incredible Android devices
Yeah.
to an iPhone? What would it be?
I'll be honest. I may make the move, and
Wow.
it's mainly because of iOS 5. And I've had iOS 5 in beta on my iPod Touch. I do use an iPod Touch just to cover mobile apps and such.
Yep.
Um, they've fixed the notification issue that I had. I just couldn't stand. I
Yeah.
just couldn't stand it. It's so much better on iOS 5.
Yeah, they've got
Um,
boxcar like activity going on, right? Summer, yeah, which very good.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, you can swipe down with a notification shade just like you can on Android.
it's
I
amazing.
think that's phenomenal. And a lot of the apps and services that I like are only available on iOS. So that's doing it for me, quite honestly. Hardware wise, I mean, we don't know what we're going to see. I certainly expect a dual core processor, which iOS is probably optimized to run very well on.
Yeah,
Obviously, a stellar camera, although the Galaxy 2 with this 8 megapixel
eight
sensor takes
megapixels.
stellar photos as well.
Yeah,
I would probably make the move given iOS features if the phone is a 4-inch display or larger, because I like a larger screen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see what's happening. I think that they do such a masterful job of making all of us like puppets, right? And
Oh yeah.
dancing along. And but for some reason, it resonates with the consumers. And I was a
Hmm.
BlackBerry user. I was a Palm user. I'm a Palm
Hmm.
lover.
Hmm.
And was forced into a BlackBerry because I ran a BlackBerry company.
Sure.
And then, while I was at RIM, most days I would hide my iPhone in my breast pocket while I would use a fake BlackBerry and then go into the car and check my email. But
Yeah.
interesting days. I can't
Well,
wait to see this.
I reserve the right to actually buy both a Galaxy S2 and an iPhone and switch my SIM between them.
Fair
It's
enough.
all for work. It's
It
all
is,
for
of
work.
course. It's a scientific experiment. Well,
Yep.
Kevin, I really appreciate. I know that it's been a crazy week, and I really appreciate that you could come on and do this quickly and to summarize it was still fresh in your mind
Yeah.
what happened down at Mobilize, because I know you guys are on to the next and newest event. But I definitely do appreciate the fact that you spent this time. And for anybody who's looking at this, go to gigaom.com. If I know you've heard of gigaom.com, because if you haven't, just stop listening to this. Put your computer away, put your tablets away, and then just go on your merry way with pen and paper. GigaOm is a very important resource, and Kevin is right in the middle of that when it comes to the mobile space. And I really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, man.
Rob, it was totally my pleasure. Anytime.
Well, this has been another, I don't know, a breaking episode of Untether.tv. If you have any feedback or comments or suggestions, what do you think? If you're going to be buying the iPhone 5, are you holding off for that perfect Android device, which may come in the next couple of weeks or may not? What are you doing? If there's anything that you want to comment on, reach out to me at untether@gmail.com. I love the feedback, and I appreciate the fact that you guys watch day in and day out. Thank you so much. Kevin, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great job.